Gen Z is packing its bags and checking out of the United States. Millions of young people are looking beyond the stars and stripes, chasing a new life somewhere else. What's driving this exodus? On this episode of the Infographics Show, we're explaining why so many Gen Z Americans want to leave the country. Travel is a rite of passage for the young, whether you can afford it or not. Many generations have fond memories of backpacking through Europe, staying at low-cost hostels, and couch surfing when needed. For earlier generations, it was just a quick adventure before returning home, going to college, and building a life, then worrying about when their own kid backpacked through Europe. But Gen Z isn't looking for a vacation. It's looking for an escape. Unlike the generations before them who struggled but still felt they had a place, Gen Z doesn't feel left behind. It feels like the world simply isn't built for them anymore, and the American dream is slipping out of reach. And that has made them wonder, does it need to be the American dream? Gen Z is known to be by far the most iconoclastic and pessimistic generations. While millennials are often fatalistic about their future, Gen Z simply thinks the system itself isn't working anymore. Something new needs to be built or found elsewhere. But the discontent is across the board. A recent poll shows 75% of Americans are more stressed about the country's future than in previous years, and that can translate to physical symptoms linked to stress and anxiety. The stress may be getting too much for people, and so it makes sense to look for a healthier place. But how realistic are those dreams? Currently, 4 out of 10 Americans report that they have considered leaving the country in the next few years. However, those numbers shift dramatically by age. Approximately 25% of Gen X and 26% of baby boomers are considering the move, and those low numbers aren't a surprise. These generations are older and much more likely to be settled in with a job and a family. Upending your life on a whim is a massive undertaking, and it's far less likely to be possible when you have so much left behind. But for the younger generations, they may feel like there is nothing to lose. As you go down the list, the numbers get shocking. 52% of millennials say that they have at least considered moving abroad, as many of them are still lagging behind in life and may not feel like they're risking as much by making a change. But then there's Gen Z, which is still starting out in life, with the oldest members of the generation only in their mid-20s. A whopping 63% of this generation has considered moving abroad while they're still in the early stages of their career and life. They want to change, and that includes a different country. And it's not just about age, it's about who you are. The study by the Harris Poll found that Black, Hispanic, and LGBTQ residents were among the most likely to consider moving. This is likely attributed to the chaotic political climate in the United States, where many rights and laws that were considered a foregone conclusion before are now up in the air. But it also comes down to another color, green. Across the board, people express serious concerns with the economic situation in the United States, worrying that it is no longer hospitable to build a life, let alone a family. And if you can't afford a good life, you'll find it somewhere else. For years now, younger residents have been saying they don't feel that the future is set up for them to succeed. There are countless reasons for this, but the biggest one is that the price of, well, everything is skyrocketing. They feel it at the marketplace, where a simple grocery order can feel like having your pocket picked. But it's even more obvious when you get into bigger purchases. The combination of inflation and tariffs means that cars are more expensive than ever. And while many people have opted to take public transit instead, those rates keep shooting up as well, due to underfunding by the government. But that is nothing compared to where you lay your head at night. If Gen Z had one factor that worries them the most, it's that they don't know how they'll ever be able to afford a home of their own. Millennials are already much more likely to rent than other generations, and that means that they might be paying the majority of their monthly paychecks to a roof over their head, all without ever owning a home of their own. Rents are rising, making it harder and harder to ever save up enough to move out. Plus, the price of houses are going up as well. This is due to a combination of market factors that leads to many vacant houses being purchased by corporations for rental instead. It takes a bite out of your paycheck, if you even have a paycheck. Besides housing, the other factor that terrifies Gen Z about living in the US is their job prospects. A lot of jobs are about to be shaken loose as baby boomers all hit retirement age. But the bigger question is, how many of those jobs are about to go back into the market? Companies have become infamous for combining roles, leaving one person doing 2 roles for 1 paycheck. And then there's the scourge of outsourcing, where jobs are sent overseas where they can be done for pennies on the dollar. This is especially common in tech support and other remote positions, and of course AI is looming on the horizon, threatening to automate millions of jobs and take whole sectors out of the job market, which means that for Gen Z the job market is a nightmare. College graduates have countless nightmare stories about applying for hundreds of jobs and getting zero responses, or one automated rejection email after another. Those who have gotten to an interview find themselves in packed cattle calls, sometimes including millennials who look even more desperate for a gig than their Gen Z counterparts. That's led many Gen Zers without a steady income source, trying to cobble together enough for their monthly bills with a combo of remote work and gigs, many of which involve unpredictable long hours, delivering food or driving people in ride shares. And in many cases, they are already behind the eight ball. Financial stability can be hard to find in the United States these days, but it's even harder if you're already facing an uphill battle. Gen Z has had the highest average student debt per generation, and many of them are facing a decades-long battle to fully pay it off at high interest rates. Additionally, health insurance can be increasingly costly as subsidies expire, and it can be a tough battle to pay off unexpected medical costs even if you have insurance. But one out-of-network procedure or uninsured incident can lead to a healthcare bill that seems impossible to pay off, and the world around them looks less and less secure by the day. The baby boomers and Gen X grew up in a world where the United States was the undisputed global superpower, winning the Cold War and dominating world affairs. While millennials observed a far less settled global situation, they still saw the United States as one of the most secure countries in the world. But that is changing. School shootings, more common in the US than anywhere else, gave many Gen Zs a deep sense of anxiety through school. Disputed presidential elections leading to violence, once seen as a staple of unstable governments abroad, made its way here. And as divisive politics give way to political violence, the United States seems less like a refuge, no matter which side you're on. And it's not the only area where people feel like it's falling behind. There are some crises that hit everyone, no matter where you live. There wasn't a country around where the COVID-19 virus didn't upend life, even if we can't really get any data about North Korea's outbreak. But the United States' response was seen by many as chaotic, with many admiring the aggressive and carefully controlled tactics that Australia and New Zealand took, although they had a geographic advantage. And then there's climate change, one of the biggest sources of anxiety for Gen Z. Under its current government, the US is seen as scaling back its efforts to combat its impact on the environment. And while people might not be able to escape the impact, they could at least feel like they're part of the solution. And increasingly, the grass is looking greener on the other side. Of course, it's not enough to just want to move abroad. You need a place to move to, and a safety net is increasingly appealing. Few millennials and Gen Z have any desire to give up their US citizenship, and most will be leaving family and friends behind in the United States if they leave. But fortunately, the United States offers an option many countries don't: dual citizenship. Many Americans are actually born with it thanks to a parent being a citizen in another country that conveys citizenship like this. But it's also possible in some countries to apply for dual citizenship in a country you move to while maintaining your original citizenship. And Gen Z is looking for a few things when they country shop. For one thing, they're looking for a relatively stable country where they'll feel safe. That means they'll be concentrating on a few areas of the world, especially for those who don't have specific roots in the country. China is seen as one of the fastest growing economic and military powers, with a high standard of living in many regions. But it's not likely to be high on many people's lists to immigrate to unless it's for work, due to the country's authoritarian government. Same goes for places like the United Arab Emirates, which combine a modern economic system and tourist scene with strictly conservative social policies. Gen Z might not trust American democracy anymore, but they are not ready to leave it fully behind. And they're also looking for a little help on the way up. The biggest challenge for Gen Z is getting out of debt, paying for their monthly expenses, and making ends meet. And that makes countries with a robust social safety net extremely appealing. The highest reason they gave for wanting to move abroad, with 25% of respondents referring to this in a 2023 poll, was social programs. These include socialized healthcare offering billing-free doctor visits and surgery, as well as subsidies for having children, perks like free childcare or friendly housing policies, including housing subsidies and rent control. Cost of living in the US was also a big factor, and many foreign countries have more government involved in how staples of everyday living are priced. Gen Z is looking for that sweet spot, and they have their eye on some countries that might provide it. The countries on Gen Z's emigration wish list aren't surprising. They're the countries that would be easiest for Americans to assimilate to, and sitting comfortably at the top is Canada. It's just across the border from the US, easy to fly or drive to, and primarily English-speaking in all but one of its provinces. The country has actually played host to American expats before in large numbers, taking in plenty of draft dodgers during the Vietnam War. The country is almost seen as an extension of American culture by many Americans. although many Canadians would strongly disagree. But it would be one of the easiest countries for Americans to settle in, and the same goes for the second choice. The United Kingdom is another English-speaking powerhouse with a huge global influence and very familiar culture to most Americans. After all, the US used to be a colony. The country is seen as being in good economic shape, and it has universal healthcare just like Canada. However, it's seen as slightly more volatile politically, with both its major parties in danger of splintering and signs of the same populist political movements that have helped to throw the United States into chaos. And for the next choice, you've got to go a lot further south. Australia has many of the same selling points as Canada and the United Kingdom, although it may take more getting used to in some areas. After all, its place in the deep southern hemisphere means the seasons are flipped. Ever seen Santa delivering gifts in shorts? You will. With universal healthcare and strong social programs, the country's seen as an ideal place to live. Although because of the country's huge size, most people wind up living in one city, and they don't have as many chances to travel as easily as in other countries due to distance. Plus, those spiders. Fourth and fifth place go to France and Italy, both of which are European Union members that offer free range of movement with other EU nations. However, both countries are seen as having rather unsettled political scenes, making them slightly more questionable long-range prospects. However, they have one thing going for them that will likely always keep them ranking high on people's lists: cultural clout. French and Italian culture and cuisine are big in the United States, and many people will always aspire to move there. But from there, things get very different. In sixth place, you'll find Japan. Known as one of the most stable and technologically advanced countries in the world, a big part of why Gen Z is so fascinated with this country is because of culture, as the country's responsible for some of the media the youth are the most obsessed with. However, many anime-obsessed Americans may be disappointed. There are no ninjas or Pokemon in the streets. The country still gets high points for its strong job market and tech sector, offering plenty of opportunities for job seekers. And while the country obviously does speak another language primarily, it is a highly international country, and the odds are most people will at least speak some English. Mexico is the standout on this list. It might be the easiest country to get into. After all, countless people visit there to enjoy some cheap margaritas in Tijuana every day. Mexico has a higher crime level than any other country on the list, making some areas highly unsafe, but it also offers the lowest cost of living. For those who want to eschew the rat race altogether and enjoy a laid-back life, Mexico has some appeal, and there are plenty of spots around the country that are filled with tourists and expats enjoying the good life. And the EU seems to have a strong pull on Gen Z. Spain and Germany are both on the list in spots 8 and 9. These countries have the same selling points as the rest of the EU: freedom of movement, a strong democratic government, and a robust social safety net. While both primarily speak another language, they have enough tourists that an English speaker would likely be able to get by pretty easily. And besides, there's always that high school Spanish class to fall back on. These countries have both seen heavy immigration in recent years, and many Americans are looking to join the fun. And sneaking on to the end of our list is a small country with big clout. If you've watched the Lord of the Rings movies, you probably have had a pretty fond impression of New Zealand. The island nation, not too far from Australia, has become a popular vacation spot, and now a lot of people are looking to move there as well. Combining the excellent social welfare system it has with the beautiful climate and stable government, it looks like an ideal place to settle for many. It also gained attention for what many called the most effective COVID-19 response in the world, with the country locking down early and essentially wiping out the virus by isolating, allowing citizens to largely get back to normal life within months. So many people are ready to start packing, but it may not be that simple. Americans who want to move abroad might refer to themselves as expats, but other countries might see them more as refugees. And that means the countries might be fairly selective with who they let in, at least as permanent residents. Other countries might have stricter border controls, with even Canada being notably restrictive to anyone who even has a minor criminal record. Plenty of people hoping to party at Niagara Falls have gotten turned away at the border because of that one DUI they got in college. And if you're hoping to settle, expect to be scrutinized. Unless you get flagged at the border, you're probably going to be able to pop into any of those countries for a visit. See how you feel about the culture and whether you could imagine yourself living there. But tourists are usually prompted to give information on how long they intend to stay and why they're visiting. So simply walking in and sticking around usually isn't an option. To get a job or to take advantage of the social safety net in any of these countries, you'd likely have to apply for citizenship and get approved. And that can be a lengthy process. Much like in the United States, other countries with high standards of living often have long lists hoping to get in. Gen Z isn't the first group to think it'd be great to move to Canada, and that means finding out what each country values or what they don't. One harsh lesson many Gen Zers are finding out is that many of their dream countries are actually far less open than they thought. For instance, New Zealand screens people who want to become permanent residents or citizens for anything that could cause excessive demand on public services, which means that many people with conditions like autism are screened out automatically and have no chance at being approved. That might make the dream more difficult. But Gen Z isn't giving up. Moving abroad might feel like a solution to all of life's problems, but as many have found out, it means a whole new set of problems. Expats might not be new, but there is a reason many of them have historically been retirees. One of the biggest challenges new arrivals might find is finding a job. Until you get your citizenship, red tape might keep you out of many fields. For high-level professional positions, a degree in the United States might not qualify you abroad unless you're recruited. That's something that many immigrants to the US have found out. Many doctors in Colombia or Vietnam find themselves running a laundromat or a noodle shop here instead. And for those young people who think, I don't need a job, the social safety net there will take care of me, think again. Because these countries see the influx coming and they are prepared. Many of these countries want to know what you're going to be doing in their borders, especially if you're going to stay. The dream of walking up to the border and just saying, hello, I'd like to move in, is just that, a dream. If the mass Gen Z exodus begins, those regulations are likely to become even more restrictive. So those who are planning on it had better get things in order starting now. But despite this, the numbers might keep on going up. Every generation has hit their rough spots, but Gen Z might be different. This is the first generation that doesn't just hope for better times, they don't think they're coming. Increasingly, Gen Z seems to believe that the world's best days are behind it, and particularly their countries are. They've developed a sense of fatalism around their economic and job prospects, and many of them have given up trying to do things the old-fashioned way because they simply don't see any point in it. And when that happens, the rest of the world looks pretty great. While the outside world beyond America still has plenty of problems, and the world isn't easy for an expat, the grass is always greener on the other side. Many Gen Zs just want to feel like there's hope for them, and they feel stuck in an endless cycle of debt, underemployment, and political instability. If they can pack things up and start over in a foreign country, it gives them hope for the future. And for many of them, they feel like this is the only way they'll be able to truly kick off their adult lives. And that poses a major problem for America. Sure, some pundits might be happy to see them go, but to stay competitive, the United States will need to have the brain power to compete with the rest of the world. The boomers are aging fast, and Gen X and the millennials can't pick up the slack forever. The United States has a lot of resources, but it means very little without one key asset: young people. Maybe Gen Alpha can pick up the baton and… oh wait, they're watching Skibbity Toilet again. Never mind. Gen Z might be ready to pack up and leave the US, but how does the rest of the world really feel about them? Watch This Is What the Rest of the World Thinks of Americans to find out, or click on this video instead.